All right, let's get our Facebook groups in here before it's officially time to start the show here. Spinning wheels going on, 1 and 2. All right, welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. It is Thursday morning, the 6th of July, 2023, and it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by, as always, for these morning shows, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how you doing? What's good? What's new?
I'm doing good. July 6th, that means I'm a month away from birthdays at my house. So, those kids are getting old. I got 14 and 12 coming up. You were just talking about 2 and 4 staying at your house. I'm like, I remember not too long ago. And then 14 and 12 coming up at my house.
Wow. Well, they're getting old, but that's always a good time to kind of see them change and grow as personalities and whatnot. So hopefully everything is good there. Hopefully they're staying out of trouble over summer break. I know that football and whatnot's going on for your son, so staying busy, and baseball at the same time. But we got Wang Chung saying, "Babe, wake up! BFBA is on, and they don't care you slept 3 hours." That's I mean, that sounds like me, but more for hiking. I'll bed at 10, time to wake up at midnight.
We were just talking about that about the kids with some kids staying at Nick's house. I'm like, they don't care what time you went to bed. They're getting up. The pets are a little easier. You can at least throw the cat off the bed or the dog. Lay down. The kids, they don't care.
Nope, you're up now. So yeah, it'll be fun. There's a really awesome flight museum in Seattle with attached to Boeing that they're going to today. So hopefully that'll tire them out and they'll have a good time. But good to see you, Wang Chung. Hope you're doing well. Got Philip in the house. Morning, everyone. Good to see you, Philip. Kevin Gray saying, "Evening, Broncos country." Well, where are you, Kevin? Big mile high salutes to Broncos country. I don't know if that was an autopilot there, saying evening, but maybe you're across the pond. I didn't even know. Hope you're doing well. Jeremy Sean,
Kevin last night, and he said, "See you in the morning." So good to see you, Kevin.
Yeah. Good evening, man. I'm ready for bed too. That sounds great. Jeremy Sean, morning boys. Personally, I like the moves not to be hot. I like my moves to be hot, not burning. I gotcha. Chad always likes to throw in a few, key words like that. So 3 burning moves.
Breaks
Burning
silence.
is not something.
Yeah, he spoke. Reveals.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. Good. It's good for revenue. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And burning's a little bit of a trigger word for me right now with how hot it is in Seattle. We reached 90 yesterday, and again, no AC with 90 is pretty damn miserable. But we're getting by. It's nice and cool here in the basement, luckily. But good to see you, Jeremy. Hope you're doing well. Ty in the house. Good morning, Broncos family. Zach Powers. Good morning. And we got Troy coming in $9.99. Troy has been unbelievable with the super chats the last 2 months, consistently, and also pretty typically $9.99 as well. So I mean, obviously, you drop a 50-cent super. God bless you. That helps a lot. But Troy coming in $9.99 again, saying, "Hey guys, if the Broncos are involved in trades, what is the most likely timing? Before camp, in camp, during the season? Still want us to get something for a wide receiver. I think the most likely move that would happen would be right before the season starts. So you didn't have that one in there, but I think you see like when they cut down, the Broncos maybe have a little bit of surplus, and we saw it 2 years ago when the Broncos traded away. Oh gosh, his name's escaping me now. The wide receiver that they traded to Detroit, Trinity Benson. Yep, they traded Trinity Benson for a pick right before the season started. I think that's the most likely move. I think you're hoping that it's not during the season, because I think if it's a during the season move, it's more likely you are selling than buying.
And that's where I was going. If we're talking about, if the past actions are any indication, the most likely, if I can only choose one, the most likely is probably trade deadline, right? Mm-hmm. That would probably be the most likely if there's only one. But there will probably be multiple moves, Troy. And, right before we're coming up on August, before training camp, you think, okay, we get a look at this 2 weeks in, start getting on the phone. Okay, this guy's not going to work out for us. This guy's not going to work out for us. Well, hey, let's make a deal. And then, there's the roster cut downs. But, the other part of that, Nick, though, is you go from 90 to 53. Do you really want to make a move when there's going to be, what's that, 40 players per team? 1,200 players about to hit that have to pass through the waiver wire. So if it's most likely for me is trade deadline, if it's just one.
Yeah. I hope not, because I think the trade deadline means that things went off the rails more so than the Broncos are trading to add to the team, especially with, again, their limited draft capital this season. Not crazy limited, but you are less than average in terms of what you have because of the Sean Payton deal and the trade up for Riley Moss. But Yeah, definitely possible, and still want something for a wide receiver. Scott and I had a fun time talking about Broncos setting a wide receiver for a Falcons defensive lineman, and both teams kind of maybe getting better there. But I know that you don't want to give up Graham, and I don't think the Broncos would give up Judy. So that's
No,
talking
no,
about
no, and
rookie
I think
contracts.
the Broncos would make that deal in a heartbeat right
Graham
now.
for like
Taquan
Patrick or
Graham
something, or Graham for Sutton.
for
Sutton.
Cortland Sutton. Most of y'all haven't heard of Taquan Graham, I would imagine, and that's okay. He's going into his third year, coming off an injury, and he's a really good player. Interior
Yeah,
line prospect.
yeah, he's
He's a player now. Interior
yeah,
line guy, 290 pounds. Breakout as a second year and got hurt about week 12, week 11, somewhere in there.
yeah. I mean, starting quality 4-eye, 5 technique, which Broncos could probably use on this team. But I digress. Troy, thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate you. We got Michael Ronquillo coming in here with the black background on Facebook there. That's interesting. I don't know if that indicates super chats or something, but that's new.
We have changed that. There's several people that use this room for different things, and sometimes the backgrounds get messed up. By the way, Nick, that's under brand. Luke figured that out before you did. So shame. And sometimes the colors. And when we had the black and white up, we were like, hey, we kind of like the black and white. It's crisp. It's a little bit more less bubblegummy than the Broncos orange. However, I do see that logo is up in the top right, superimposed. That I'll get rid of that here in a moment.
Okay. Well, Michael Ronquillo coming in saying, good morning, Nick and Scott and Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos and Buckham with the salute there. The salute emoji. Thank you so much, Michael. Hope you're doing well. We appreciate you. We also got US Day, Buenos Dias, Kevin Gray, morning. He'd rather get a center. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about center here in a bit from Chad's article, 3 burning moves to the Broncos need to make. You can check it out on Mile High Huddle. We got Seth in here too. Good morning, Broncos country, MHH for life. And Gary Palmer. Gary, one of our big time consistent contributors to the chat and the super chat fund there. So appreciate you, Gary, saying morning, Nick and Scott and Broncos country. Appreciate you, Gary. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good 4th, nice and safe, and things are going well. Dave Glassman in the house.
Yeah, not too long till we get to see you, Gary. Looking forward to it. So time goes fast. I don't know about for you, but it does for me. And July, August, we're two months from season starting. That means we're 3 months from meet and greet.
Yep. Yeah, I still have not gotten my tickets, but I do have the plane tickets, so I will be there. My parents are making it an excuse to go out to Estes Park as well. So that'll be a good time. Dave Glassman, good to see you, Dave. Adam Monks, go Denver Broncos. Go Adam Monks. Appreciate you coming in. Hope you're doing well. Russell Wilson, number 1 fan, says Broncos for life. Good to see you. Roy Osborne, good morning, Nick and Scott. Hope you had a good 4th. It was pretty good. Nice and relaxing. Nothing too much to write about. Jason McKeever, good morning, Broncos country, from town that only Nick can probably pronounce, Puyallup, Washington, down there in southwestern-ish, not too far south, but pretty close to Rainier. One of the big glaciers on Rainier is named Puyallup as well. So out there.
Yeah, probably would have done Poi.
Yeah.
So I would have missed that. Puyallup.
Yeah, Puyallup. It's got an amazing view of Rainier from there. I'm sure you got some incredible sunset photos out there, Jason. Hello to a fellow Western Washingtonian. Kevin Gray, and hopefully you're not getting smoked out by that fire near Shelton right now. Kevin Gray, morning, everybody. Good to see you. We also got Carol Allen saying, good morning, Broncos country. Been a while since I've been made a morning show. Well, we appreciate you coming in and saying hello. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good 4th. Boogmeister, good morning, big dogs. Us? Okay. Well, appreciate that. Big drink of coffee, and as I'm driving through the canyons, listening to you guys. Well, you might lose us if you're driving through canyons. 2 hands on the road, and be safe. And it sounds beautiful, man. Some of those stretches in the Southwest and the Northwest, those drives are just unbelievable. But that's me coming from the Midwest, where it's, you have some pretty sunsets and stuff, and storms coming in when you're driving also are scary but beautiful. But driving through the canyon sounds amazing. And Scott, I'm sure
I've done that drive. I've done east-west a couple of times through New Mexico, and the sedimentary rock is awesome. And then I drove from LA up to Salt Lake City, Park City, going north up there, and went up through the the Zion National? I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but
Zion's south. It's like really
it's South Utah. Yeah, coming up through there. It was 80-mile-an-hour speed limits, and going through the national parks there was pretty amazing. If you get a chance, you got to drive this country. It's really you can fly in and visit places, but driving it, if you've got the time and the resources. I was forced to a couple times moving, but we've done some good drives too. It's just a gorgeous country we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, Still need to check out some spots, but enjoying the Pacific Northwest for now. Greg Smith, morning Broncos country, Denver Broncos for life. Good to see you, Greg. Mark Schrader's in the house saying good morning, all. Good to see you, Mark. Hope you're doing down there in Texas. Hopefully it's not sweltering hot there. I know you guys have been in some danger zones with the heat here, so stay cool. Cristiano, good morning, fellas. Good to see you. Pearl Heater, good morning. Leadhead said, y'all are making me want to travel so bad. Road trips are the best, for sure, without a doubt. When I first moved out to Seattle, we drove from eastern Iowa, like right on the Mississippi, all the way to Seattle. And I had a 6-month-old puppy. And I got to tell you, he is a very good road dog. So that's no complaints. I'd have to like check the rearview mirror. Like, is he still back there? Did I forget him? Nope, he's just chilling there, sleeping, looking at me. So lucky about that.
My shepherd is afraid of everything, including the car. And when we moved, I was like, I hadn't made it out of the neighborhood yet, and he's thrown up already.
Oh, God.
Like, oh, God. We're about to go 3,000 miles of driving from LA to Georgia up to New York. But he was fine after that. I put him in I've got a big, just call it his house, big crate. And I think he's in there right now, sleeping upside down. So once he was in there, once he got the initial panic out of the way, but yeah, done it a couple times. I've done the south side, so across like I-40 and I-10 and I-20. I-10 probably. I don't think 20 goes all the way out west. I-10 goes from Jacksonville to Santa Monica, California. I've seen most of that one. Just it's awesome traveling. It's like I go by these big Winnebagos, these big Grandmaster buses. I'm like, I want one of those.
Yeah.
That's how I want to see the country in John Madden style.
Yeah, everybody out here, not everybody, but you see these like giant tricked out like Mercedes vans that are unbelievably huge with like 6 mountain bikes on it and like a BMX bike and like this stand-up paddleboard on the top, and it's like, man, they are living life. And it's like a couple and a dog, and like, man, can I be your dog? Adopt me as your dog. That'd be great. Pugmeister, hey, Park City is exactly where I'm at right now. Scott knows what I'm talking about.
Yep,
Beautiful spot.
Did that drive. It was awesome. I had an X5 with a diesel engine. So it was, you cruise at 2,000 RPM at 80 miles an hour. I'm like, that was a sweet try. I think it's Zion National Park.
South.
Yeah, it's coming up from LA.
There's like Coral Reef is in Utah. There's Canyonlands in Utah. There's Dinosaur National Park in Utah, and there's Zion as well. So that's you're probably talking Zion. Zion's incredible, but
some vacation references going on in the chat. Speaking of road trips, don't want to go off the rails too far on those, but yeah, we could make a whole show out of vacation references.
Good times, yeah, man. It's talking about the Chevy Chase, right? Family Vacation. National, God, what a great show. Keith Brugman coming in saying, good morning, Nick and Scott. Ranking AFC quarterbacks, does Russell Wilson make your top 5? In terms of career accolades, yes. In terms of entering the 2023 season, no. Unfortunately not. I haven't gone through the list here, but the AFC is absolutely loaded at the quarterback position. It's honestly quite unfair. And I think Russell Wilson's probably closer to the 10th than he is the 5th. Without having to go through, guys that I would take over.
Let's just go through it. Looking from, this is ranked by yards in reverse order. Patrick Mahomes, nope. Justin Herbert, nope. Joe Burrow, nope. Josh Allen, nope. Trevor Lawrence comes in next.
I take Trevor Lawrence.
Then Tua Tagovailoa comes in, and then Russell Wilson was after him, ranked by yards.
You also have Aaron Rodgers now.
Derek Carr, Davis Mills, Matt Ryan was in there, Mac Jones. So, 7th or 8th might be okay, but like you said, closer to 10 than 5.
Yep. And Derek Carr is now New Orleans, so he's out, but you have Aaron Rodgers in the AFC.
Right.
So, and I take Rodgers, even though he had a down year last year. I would take Rodgers one season over Russell Wilson, just based on historical precedent that we've seen from all of them. So, unfortunately, not in the top 5, but it would be pretty awesome.
Lamar Jackson, that was ranked by throwing yards, and he doesn't throw for 300 yards a game, and he only played 12 games. So Lamar Jackson's in there too for sure. So 8 or 9.
Yep, which is not the middle of the pack in the AFC, but hey, we'll see what Sean Payton can do this year. We're judging it mostly off of last season, right? You judge the most recent, but maybe he can have a rebound year this year. We'll see. Didn't know Nick was a furry. I don't know what's going on. I can be their dog. I get it now. It has to be my favorite car to date, the X5. Well, God, man, if it pay for my vacations, and I'll be a furry for a bit. I don't know what that makes me, but God bless them.
Look it up.
I know. I've been.
Like, you know what a furry is.
Oh, I know.
Actually, it's like the definition's changing though, because like these elementary, middle school kids are like dressing up as animals, and that's how they're going to school. That's what becoming a furry means.
You know what? As long as it's between consenting people, then adults, then God bless them. But not for me. I've seen there's like weird stickers around Seattle sometimes too. It's like, huh. All right. Well, moving on. Michaela Israel.
We're way
Good
off
to
the
see.
rails. It's
Yeah.
July, folks. It's
Yeah.
July.
We get to stretch our legs a little bit, sure. Michaela Israel, good morning, guys. Good to see you, Michaela. And Leadhead saying BFB is nuts in the best possible way. We just like to have a little fun. Tim Durr saying Rodgers and Wilson both had rough years. I know he won MVP 2 years prior, but still, yeah, Rodgers struggled last season, and I'm curious to see how he handles adversity this season in the New York Jets, because he will handle
Rodgers'
adversity.
struggle was 3,700 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions.
That would have been much better.
That would probably put you in the playoffs last year. His struggles were what you're hoping. If I offered you those numbers for Russell Wilson right now, you'd probably take them.
Yep. Yeah, probably. Yep. So, yeah, Rodgers definitely had a down year last year comparatively, but I would say his offensive infrastructure was probably worse than what Denver had in terms of players, not probably coaching. And he'll be better this year. I'm curious to see, though, how Rodgers handles adversity, because it seems like he's been teetering towards, not being as dialed in, right? There's been all the rumors about, he goes to the dark room for a week or whatever, and all the crazy relationship stuff. And like, he's more interested in the Pat McAfee interviews. Now it's a new thing in New York. Is he going to be like doubled down on spite? Because he is a spiteful individual, it seems like, and he'll be great this year, like a lot of rage. Or will it be adversity? And he's like, hey, you know what? Zen, baby. I don't care. This doesn't really matter. I'll go talk about my DMT or whatever he's talking about on the Pat McAfee show these days. But it'll be interesting to follow Rodgers this season. That New York Jets Broncos game should be a very fun one.
Michaela Israel saying good morning, guys. Good morning to you as well. And there's some talk about Zion Park and the rattlesnakes. I've never seen a rattlesnake in person.
Have you ever heard one?
I've never heard one. Yeah, I've never seen one. If I had heard one, I would have looked for it.
Yeah.
Make sure I didn't walk right into it.
Yeah.
But I've never seen one. I think I've seen a copperhead recently. Everybody always says the water snakes around here, they look just like moccasins, and people, I saw water moccasins. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. And then they kill them. Unfortunately, some of their natural protection of being a scary looking snake means they're vulnerable to being killed. But I don't particularly want to see a rattlesnake in person in the wild.
I've been on a hike before and I've heard one, and I didn't mess around. I think it was under a log or in brush somewhere. It's like, you know what? You're letting me know that you're there.
Thank you. Your space. I'll find a new space.
God bless you. I'm going to go this way. So yeah, always got to respect nature. Don't be one of those dumb, whats, out there petting a bison or taking a selfie with a bear. You're just asking for it. I saw somebody once get not speared, but bumped by a mountain goat because they went up to like touch it. And it's like, wow, you probably deserve to be gored on that one. Richard Miles, good morning. Nick and Scott, good to see you. Dom's in the house out there in Albuquerque. Is that correct, Dom? For some reason, it's still early. It says, good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. Scott, buddy, do you experience Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios in Orlando? I went to the Universal Studios in Hollywood with my wife a couple weeks ago for a vacation, and Super Nintendo World is awesome.
No, we didn't go into that one. What's the one? There was a ride though that we didn't get into. I don't know if it was the Minions ride or something but we were just at the, the one with all the roller coasters. And I'm telling you, the Velocicoaster is the best coaster I've ever been on by far. So Universal is the real deal. Disney's great for the young kids. And then once they get a little bit older, go to Universal.
Yeah. I was not really a roller coaster person growing up as much, but they're fun. In high school, started getting into it more and always enjoyed the Six Flags in Gurnee, Illinois. They had good rides.
I'm kind of a speed junkie. Yeah. So, I've jumped out of planes. I've had motorcycles that would pin your ears back. The next thing for me will be an electric car that with 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Yeah. So roller coasters. I was skiing blacks 3 days into my skiing ever, because if it was groomed and steep, I was okay with that. I was 30 years old, talking about Park City again. It was the first time I went skiing green, blue, double blue, black. So 4th day out there, I went down a black because I'm like, I'm not afraid of wiping out and I'm not afraid of speed. I still don't like bumps, too old for moguls, but yeah, I'm a little bit of a speed junkie.
Yeah. It's I've only skied once, and it was in Wisconsin, and I was okay, but that was one of my buddies took a pretty good wipeout and hurt himself, and was like, you know what? I really like my ability to walk. So haven't been back to
The
do
first
that
time
yet.
I ever went was Park City, and anybody that says, "Oh, you're ruined now," it's like the skiing in the Rockies is world class. It's just there's no beating it. So it's like, well, you can't really go anywhere else after doing that.
Everybody out here in Seattle is obsessed with Whistler. Getting out to
Whistler's
Whistler and
nice.
BC.
Yep, I've been there. I haven't skied in a while, so I'd have to get back in shape. My legs wouldn't be good enough for like a 3-day ski trip. I'd have to do more. I walk a ton, but that's different. That's
Different kind of muscle.
That's game day shape
Yeah.
to be able to ski. Do I like Six Flags? Yeah. Yep, I do like Six Flags. The Batman ride was one of my favorites. Six Flags Over Georgia. Me and my best friend in middle school, we had our parents' ideas of daycare when you're a Gen Xer and 12 is season passes to the theme parks.
See ya.
They just drop you off at 8:00 and we'll pick you up at 8:00. Here's some
Good
money.
luck. Yep. Don't eat too much funnel cake. The Robot of Doom coming in on YouTube saying, well, the multiverse is breaking. I'm on YouTube rather than Twitch. Let the chaos begin. Chaos can definitely begin now. Good to see you, Robot of Doom. Richie Rich, hope you're doing well. Morning to you both. Good to see you. It says, Lawrence Rivera saying, come on, I always wanted a selfie with a bear. Morning, guys. Yeah, not too close. If you wanted to see a black bear, I could give you some trails out in Olympic where you'd almost be guaranteed to see black bears. But I would not recommend getting too close still. Better than grizzlies, but just, be smart about it. So I know Scott wants to see some black bears. I'm surprised you haven't seen any in Georgia.
I've got a 400mm camera. That I can get as close as we need to get.
Yeah, they're pretty darn cool. I've seen them in every single national park out here, which is pretty cool. The one I haven't seen yet that I do not want to see is a mountain lion. That one is
nope.
No thanks.
I don't want to see them either. They're unfortunately we've taken up too much of their natural habitat and all that kind of stuff. But they're scary animals. A 9-pound cat is a handful. If they decide they don't want to do anything, let alone a 200-pound mountain lion. Nope. I'm glad they're out there. They're gorgeous. But what kind of mountain lion could we get for this team? Let's try and get back on topic here. Burning desires. What is your burning desire here for moves that need to be made?
So I will drop this article here in the chat for everybody to see. So Chad Jensen, boss man, as I like to call him, over on Mile High Huddle, he wrote an article here recently saying 3 burning moves the Denver Broncos need to make or should make before the start of the season. And number one for him is something that, Scott, I feel like you and I talked about a good bit entering the offseason, especially leading up to the draft, the center position. Now, everybody knows the Broncos pretty much have made 0 moves, essentially, at center. They did bring in Kyle Fuller, who's maybe had 2 cups of coffee in the NFL to date, but he's out here competing with Lloyd Cushenberry, who greatly struggled through his career to date. I mean, this is year 4. It's the last year of his rookie contract. But yeah, Lloyd Cushenberry right now penciled in to be the starter. We'll see if that continues. But here's what Chad says. He says, I'm willing to trust Peyton's read on Lloyd Cushenberry and wait to see how it pans out over training camp. But if I'm Peyton, my finger is hovering over the panic button, because if the best predictor of future behavior is the past, then disappointment is likely from Denver's future relative to Cushenberry. Broncos drafted as center Alex Forsythe, 7th round. And before that, just signed veteran Kyle Fuller, the latter of whom has some experience snapping to Russell Wilson. I'm not sure either guy is ready for the starting job if Cushenberry fails to launch. And Chad's number one guy that he said he'd bring in would be Ben Jones, who was a very talented, very good center from Tennessee, from Georgia as well, but has had some health issues in specifically concussion. So worth monitoring there.
And knowing Ben Jones, what he came up through, that doesn't surprise me, because he is a type of overachiever. I've told you all this before. There's a lot of repeat customers in here. I saw him when he was coming through high school. He came to one of the first camps I was running, and he's this knock-kneed, dough-faced, round white kid, 6'2", and kind of sloppy looking, walks in, and you're like, all right. And then he just goes and whips everybody's ass that you put in front of him. He shows up at the combine. All the NFL writers that I know, they're like, that's it? No way. I'm like, just put the pads on the kid and watch. So he's always been one of those overachievers, having to work a little bit harder, do a little bit more. and that can have some long-term detrimental effects on your health, Nick. And if he wants to play, and if he's cleared to play, and it's safe for him to play, he'd be an absolutely outstanding pickup for the Denver Broncos. But he's got time. He's a plug-and-play guy. Teach him the system. Okay, he's a football savant. Just let him go. And if he makes himself available, he would be a great add to this team.
Yeah, just the concussions that he's had are concerning. Also, I'm curious if he's at a point in his career, age 34, where it's you know what, I could walk away and be totally fine, but if not, show me the damn money. And I don't know if that's something that the Broncos would be able to do with Ben Jones at this point with the moves they've made, but we'll see. He still has not officially announced his retirement. Maybe he's trying to, string along through training camp and stuff. Some positions I'm okay with that. Center is one where you do want the chemistry, the line checks and whatnot, knowing the system, where I think having more reps is better at that spot. So it does make me a little hesitant that the further we go along, the more likely the less likely the Broncos are going to make a move that can move the needle, so to speak.
No, I agree. And especially, the chemistry is big. Ben Jones would fit in with anybody, so that would help, and bringing in a guy with his, phrase that we like to use around here, skins on the wall, would help. But when you're as a unit for April, May, June, July, 4 months with these guys, and you bond, then just making a big change it can stir things up a little bit. But I think Ben Jones would be okay there. And like I said, as far as like learning the system, that type of thing, it doesn't bother me a bit. These guys, because I absolutely agree with you, especially the center position.
Yeah.
And that's why I said with this guy in particular, he could be a plug and play type of guy.
Especially considering the competition, what it's shown so far in Denver. But hey, maybe this is a year that things are much better for Lloyd Cushenberry. I mean, we kind of talked about it, that it's pretty, when you have two guys that immediately upon contact are getting crumpled into the pocket, into the quarterback's lap at left guard and center, makes it pretty damn hard to have a solid pocket to step up into. And maybe with Ben Powers next to him, who is an absolute unit of a blocker, he can just sit down and he's not moving.
Right.
Maybe that you can help a little bit with Lloyd Cushenberry and some of those issues there where, just can minimize them somewhat. So other names Chad listed here, talk about old and injured center who's been great, but probably not going to play. Rodney Hudson was great, 3-4 years ago, had a good career with the, some good years with the Raiders, some really good years with the Chiefs as well. But he is old and has been very injured. So I'd be surprised if he plays. But I mean, even just adding somebody like that to the room, especially when you have a first-year offensive line coach, can have a good effect on the locker room and the meeting rooms and whatnot. So I wouldn't be against it. The issue is it doesn't offer much versatility, positional versatility, which you want from a non-starter, but something to consider. And then Chad also mentions Pat Elflein, who has struggled in the NFL. Coming out of Ohio State, really hasn't found a spot, but he does offer some positional versatility. I think he's much more of a outside zone guy, though, overall, than a power gap kind of guy.
And I think the last thing I would say about Ben Jones, circling back to your comment about, show me the money on this, is I don't want him to make a financial decision.
Yeah.
I don't want him to be like, okay, well, there's risks, but wow, I don't want to pass up an $8 million payday. Mm-hmm. I want him to play because he's cleared, he's healthy, and he loves the game, which I know the last part is 100% true. Mm-hmm. And that would be a reason for him to come. Now, the money's great, don't get me wrong, but I don't want him to make a financial decision. I want him to make a life decision, knowing that once you're done, you're done. And this could be my last chance, and I want to go one more time. And if he does, great. But like I said, I don't want him to be paid. I made the same statement about Sean Payton and the money that you would have as owners. You don't want guys coming to the Denver Broncos for purely a financial reason. And they didn't break the bank for Sean Payton. They didn't. He got less than I was expecting to. I don't think he's the highest paid coach in the NFL. And if he is, it's not by much. So he didn't make purely a financial decision based on picking the Denver Broncos. He probably could have gotten similar money for somewhere else. He picked it because of the situation. Guys that are just getting a payday aren't motivated the same as guys that choose to be someplace where the money is not a factor. But what I've also said about the Broncos, what's nice is the money never has to be a factor. You can pay a guy what you need to. It never has to be, oh, well, we'd like to get this guy, but we can't afford him. No, that's not the case with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah. And Cristiano asks, what's up with Ben Jones? Why is he available despite being the best center in free agency? And it's got to be concussions by his side or team side. It's probably column A, column B, both. But teams would bring him in. I think it's probably more so him, because if it was the teams, I think they would bring him in and then do the medical checks on him, and then it would be the red flags. Right. I haven't even heard about him.
He's got
coming
time to
in.
Sit back. If I'm his significant other or agent, dad, family member, whoever, somebody close to Ben Jones, say, dude, there's no rush. No. Sit out and think, work out, go fishing, stay in shape. Mm-hmm. Think about it. You've got all summer. You can join August 15th if you want to. And I think that's what he's doing.
Yeah, without a doubt. Sorry, I'm trying to mute when I'm not talking. I don't know if you can hear the little
can't hear you, but your sound goes in and out a little bit with the internet problems you said that your provider has been having.
Okay, well, that's annoying, because that's the video has been okay. But I digress. Keeping it moving here. The next one here from Chad is defensive line, which would be my number one, full disclosure. And he says, while signing Zach Allen checked one box, on the surface it failed to be a net positive because it was a counteracted move by Draymond Jones going to Seattle. I like Allen's outlook on the defensive line, but this team needs one more veteran to hedge against unforeseen obstacles. And Chad says the ideal move is Shelby Harris, saying that bringing back Shelby Harris would be a great move, could be a good rotational player for the Broncos, and somebody that is a position the Broncos could add. You know that we've been advocating for a defensive lineman for a bit. Shelby Harris would be fine with me in that role. I think he could either be your 3-4 starter at 4I, or it could be a rotational guy. I mean, he's got some 3 technique ability. He's got some 1 technique ability too. Chad didn't list anybody else in that spot. I think Matt Ioannidis, if he's still out there, is a possible option too in that kind of mold. I also think that going from, 90 to 55, whatever the cut down is, that you probably can find an interior defensive lineman if your 2 2022 draft picks in Uwazurike and Hennessing. I think I got it right. That's not Hennessy, but Hennessy.
Hennessy is the safety or the center you should trade for with the Falcons.
Yes. But Matt Hennessing, Wisconsin player, if either of those guys don't step up, then the Broncos probably make a move then. But I think you're going to give those guys a little bit of rope and a little bit of room and reps just to see if they can take that next step.
But what's a little bit scary, Nick, is right now Henningson's listed as a number 1. If you look at our lads in a 3-4 and a base 3-4, you've got Henningsen as a projected starter as one of the 3-4 defensive ends. That's not reassuring.
Yeah, I think God bless our lads because they do a good job, but these are not official depth charts.
No, I know, but you look back behind them and you're like, okay, what else would you do? Well, I'd probably put Mike Purcell in at nose and slide DJ Jones outside.
And then Zach
But
Allen
after that, it starts getting thin, man. Thin.
I mean, you know how I feel about the defensive line. We've spent almost every show talking about what would you do for this team. It's been running back and defensive line. At this point, that was before the Javonte Williams potentially coming back news. But defensive line is for sure a huge concern for me. I mean, on the interior defensive line and edge, you need to have waves of bodies. You need to have essentially 2 lines of guys that you feel pretty comfortable with right now. And I don't even know if I feel super comfortable purely just on the first line right now for the Broncos. So adding somebody else to that unit that can rotate in and give you some fresh bodies and help you with injury as well. I mean, God, we don't look, you're not hoping for injury, but right now, let's say, knock on wood, but let's say DJ Jones is out for 6 weeks. Holy bleep. Like, we're going to get destroyed up front because you don't have anybody that you trust right now. So I think that's defensive line is for sure my number 1 right now. But I will say, Scott, and you know this as well, I'm a little biased. Defensive line is my favorite. It's an area that I like to have very strong. Personally, I'd draft a defensive line in like the first 3 rounds every year if I could, just to keep those bodies fresh up there. Maybe it's because the college game in me, the teams that typically win championships are the ones that are just absolutely loaded on the defensive line. But I think the Broncos defensive line is extremely concerning right now. And as Leadhead says, Uwazurike and Henningsen need to step up. Those are the big guys. They have a golden opportunity here.
Well, right now they have to. They have to.
I think that you can find a competent body before the season,
changes, though. Obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, without change. But I agree with you. You and I have watched a team struggling with salary cap and limited resources scrape by the work we do with the Atlanta Falcons. They were able to get some guys in there that could do a job off of practice squads, off of waiver wires. Now, a couple of those guys have now signed bigger contracts because they were good finds, but they're out there. They are out there. Keith has a good question. Shelby Harris was tradable. Yep, he was traded and then was cut. We need him back? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. To me, it's a financial thing, Keith. He was on a 3-year, $27 million deal. Was he worth $9 million, or could I save $6 million and take a $3 million dead cap hit if I'm the Seattle, almost call them Mariners. I'm in baseball mode. Seattle Seahawks. Then the money was worth more than Shelby. Now you bring Shelby back for $3 million, then yeah, then it's a good deal. So it's you only, if you're outperforming your contract, you're safe. If you're not, you're not. And on $9 million, no, you don't want him back. And that's what, or you don't want him at all. That's what the Seahawks decided. And on $2.5, $3 million, yeah, he could help. He could help with that without being a detriment to your cap.
Yeah. So defensive line's number one for me on this. This would be number one on this list, and it's a spot that they need to, unless Awazarike or Henningsen step up, somebody needs to be brought in my opinion. And you could probably find somebody for relatively cheap, 1-year deal that can be a rotational player that would help you a lot. There's always those types of guys out there, especially when you cut down from 90 to 55, 53. So I'm not super worried because I do think they will make a move if they have to. But right now, if they went in with what they do have, I would be extremely concerned.
I think they have to. I'll be absolutely shocked if we don't have a Broncos sign 300-plus pound defensive lineman headline in the next 6 weeks. I will be shocked.
Does that mean that you don't have much faith that Awazarike or Henningsen can step up in that role?
Not as starters. No, I don't want Henningsen playing 50% of the snaps, 60% of the snaps. Either one of those guys as a number 2 would be okay with me. And again, Purcell, I'm okay. But if he's playing 40% at nose, and then anytime you're in a passing situation, 2nd long, 3rd and long, and then you drop him out and you slide DJ inside, then okay. But at that point, Nick, I'd almost rather go to a 4 with 2 edges, and just go light. If it's passing, I'd rather say Zach Allen and DJ in the middle. And then you've got bodies on the edge at defensive end if everybody's healthy. Who's going to step up and be that number 1 guy? Is it Randy Gregory? Can it be Baron Browning? But I'd almost rather go light in those situations, which the Broncos might be forced to do. I think I will be absolutely flabbergasted, especially after when I'm not sure when the cut downs are usually end of August. So let me say September 1st. Within the cut down before week 1, and that 2 weeks after cut downs before the first game of the season, between now and then, I think you will probably see multiple 300-plus guy defensive linemen signed. Whether they make the team is different, but I think you're gonna have to bring in more competition.
Yeah, will be really interesting to follow there. But that is one that, again, I'm concerned about. But keeping an eye on Henningsen and Awazarike, and we didn't even talk about Jonathan Harris, although there's probably
you don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to be too rough. And Tim Durr comes in and says, I thought Purcell's contract was a little heavy for his production. He was okay last season for his contract. The issue is that he's had injuries, he's getting older, and he's not super versatile. So at this point, he was one that, you could free, what was it, $3.5 million or something, $2.5 million if you moved on from him. But as far as we are right now, I'd be pretty shocked if that came to be. So Purcell's also a good locker room guy. You're happy to have him in.
And almost all of that is non-guaranteed. So if you wanted to sign to get 3.8, now, again, I just mentioned you could probably sign a couple of those guys for $1.1 million, 1.1. Am I better off signing 3 1.1 guys on non-guaranteed contracts to come in and compete than I am having Mike Purcell? That's not a bad question, Nick.
That's something that they're going to have. George Payton is going to have to debate to see what the market looks like as well. Or maybe it's something where you approach Purcell, you give him an extra year on there, you spread out that cap hit a bit. With almost no guarantees on that 2024. I'll be curious to see what happens there, but he was pretty good last year. I think he was actually played that level last year, but the year before and some injury stuff and his age it makes it questionable. Keith Brugman says, "What about our international player Hagi Chisholm Nidizubi? I can't even. HCN 6'7", 323.
He was an offensive tackle last year. and then he's being brought in as a defensive lineman. I mean, if this was college, I'd say great. Let's give him 5 years and see what can happen. But that's not somebody I think you can count on to play meaningful snaps in 2023 for the Broncos.
Yeah. Also, the fact that that's looking at that is an offensive tackle body type because of leverage issues. I mean, when you're 6'7", it's pretty hard for you to play low. A lot of times those guys, especially that big,
the Calais Campbell's, Richard Shermans of the world are rare. Eric Armstead, oh man, if you could have seen Eric Armstead play offensive tackle in high school.
Yeah.
He was our number one player. He was our number one player in the country if he wanted to be an offensive tackle.
Yeah.
One of the best I've ever seen.
And he ends up defensive tackle. He's done well for himself.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
But first round pick, made plenty of money, won some games. He could have been a Hall of Famer offensive tackle, man. But if you don't want it, you don't want it. And this is a tough game.
Yeah.
You got to love what you're doing. You can't just go out there and not put forth everything you've got, no matter how talented you are in this game, or you will wash out.
Yep. Yeah, without a doubt. So I think probably not for him. That's an offensive tackle body type leverage. At his age, I mean, anything can happen, I guess, but I would need to see it to believe it on him. The last one that Chad writes about here is the 3 burning moves that Broncos need to make. He says cornerback, and he says you got to feel good about the Broncos' top 3 cornerbacks: Surtain, Kwan Williams, Damari Mathis. Adding Riley Moss in the third year was a savvy get and could pay off big time as soon as this year. But Williams' injury concerns, while Mathis is still unproven entering year 2. One more vet could stabilize the potentially tumultuous cornerback depth chart. And he says bringing in Marcus Peters, turnover machine, but also a tumultuous personality. Marcus Peters, across from Patrick Surtain. And I got to say, Peters, if he came in for cheap for the Broncos, would be good. But I don't know if you remember, I think he was kicked out of the University of Washington. He's had some issues there. And he's one that I don't think I would touch right now. I think the Broncos, it's probably one of the most interesting positions on the defense for me this year, that cornerback battle on the outside. But I feel pretty good about whoever emerges from Riley Moss and Damari Mathis out there.
Yeah, and I don't know if we got to say hi to Robbie Red in case we missed you. We apologize. Thanks for coming in with the super chat, my friend. Big help to the show. Hope you're doing okay. Says good morning from Vashon Island. I don't know where that is.
That is in this Puget Sound. All our Western Washingtonians are showing out today. So out there in Vashon Island.
Everybody's up nice and early. We got lots of Broncos for us. That's why we do Broncos for breakfast. We do it for y'all.
That's shout out to you, Robbie Red. I didn't know you're out there. That's a beautiful ferry ride out to Vashon Island.
I would just hedge saying cornerback by saying you can never have enough. Yeah. But I think your cornerback depth is as good as really anybody's in the NFL, to be honest with you. I mean, yeah, you can never have enough. But if I've got 4 I really like, who else can say that, man? That's not easy to do. So, yes, you can never have enough corners. Yes, your cornerback talent in your room is better than most in the NFL. That's not where I would look.
Yeah, me neither. Also, the Broncos brought in mostly for special teams, but yeah, I think you do at least have to mention Tremont Smith from the Texans. That's a body out there. And then apparently at camp, Jaquan McMillan, who was an undrafted free agent last season, has been getting a little bit of buzz. And if you remember Week 18, he was pretty impressive in that Week 18 game. So I'm curious to see. The one concern I have is the nickel spot. But apparently is saying Bassey, he's okay in that role as well. Good tackler. You need some physicality at that nickel spot in today's game. So I think that you don't need to make too many moves here unless you have an injury, but you can say that about almost any position on here. So I disagree with Chad at the cornerback spot. I have no idea who's going to start on the boundary between Mathis and Moss, and maybe McMillan as a dark horse, but I feel good that they're going to do well on that side. They're going to get picked on because Surtain's on the other side. It's just the nature of having a cornerback of Surtain's ability on one side. But with Christian Parker as a defensive back coach, the investment and the talent that they have there, I'm not too worried about it.
Zach has a good point, too. He says, I'd rather bring back Darby than Peters. And I think that's a good shout, too. Going back to the question of Shelby Harris. Do I want Darby back on $11 million? No. Would I take him back on 4? Yeah, I would. Now, if I could have $5 million to spend on a player and we're talking about burning needs, I don't have a player in mind. I'd rather go safety on this one, Nick. I still think safety is a bigger need than corner. If I've got 4 corners, I'm in better shape than most. And again, I'm going to hedge up by saying you can never have enough corners, ever. And you can play 6 corners on the field at one time. You can move some guys around and let Patrick Surtain freelance, turn him into a free safety for whatever package you happen to be in. But if I'm looking at a base 11, I don't trust Caden Stearns to this point because he hasn't earned it.
Yeah.
Justin Simmons is Justin Simmons. That's fine. But after that, you're looking at a rookie in JL Skinner and an old man in Kareem Jackson. And I'm 15 years older than Kareem, so he's not that old.
Yeah.
But in football terms, he's pretty much at the end of his career. I want a safety, Nick. I'd want a safety before a corner.
And this is me just being who I am. I need to be true to myself here, but talked about defensive line here. I think I'd maybe even rather have another edge rusher out there before I'd even have another safety out there. Because, I mean, I feel okay with Jackson, Stearns, PJ Locke, Skinner, and Simmons. Just somebody's going to emerge and be okay there.
Mm-hmm.
But we know the availability of Randy Gregory. Frank Clark is older. Jonathan Cooper, 7th round pick. If you lose, let's say you lose Gregory for half the season, because when don't we lose Gregory for half the season? Then you're like in real trouble. So I think I'd even go double down on that front.
But I'm just thinking realistically, as far as money goes, like who would be available, not pie in the sky, but who would be available. Yeah. Ben Jones is available and affordable.
Mm-hmm.
A $3 or $4 million safety is good money for a safety or for a 4th or 5th cornerback.
No.
It's not for an edge.
Yeah.
So if I could buy out and we make a trade and I send a Jonathan Cooper and $5 million for a 2nd round pick, I want to use it on an edge. So I agree with you there. I'm just trying to think of realistic moves that can be made based on the circumstances going into this season. I don't think it's feasible to get an impact edge rusher. I think you can in the other positions that we've been talking about.
I agree with you on that one. Interior defensive line, number 1 for me still. Chad writes an honorable mention in here. I think we do at least have to mention it at running back. I think that's one that the Broncos can continue to slow play, just as they have so far, just so we have the most updated information on Javonte Williams possible. And guess what? There's still a number of running backs out there that the Broncos, they could even wait until week 4 this season and probably find somebody off the practice squad that could come in and fill a role. Latavius Murray last year was probably a little bit of an aberration, but it's not just Latavius Murray. I mean, Broncos country probably remembers they brought up Justin Forsett. They picked him off a practice squad like late in the season, but that had been like 2014 or something. I mean, you can find running back. So running back is still out there as well. That's one that you still have. Zeke is out there. Kareem Hunt's still out there. Leonard Fournette's still out there. There's another big time. Dalvin Cook is still out there, I think, as well. So I think, there are running backs available that you can kind of hold up on and still wait and see how it plays out.
Mike 5.56 comes. That's about my 40 time in a few years ago. I don't think I could run a 5.56 now. It's funny. The strength stays 3-year-old, but the speed just goes.
The quick twitch.
McMillan gets no love for some reason. He looked great in his limited time. We have 5 cornerbacks. And honestly, I don't remember watching him enough to leave an impact on my brain. I remember K1 and how much I loved watching him play. Simmons, obviously. Riley Moss, prospect, know plenty about him. And who am I forgetting on the other side?
Damari Mathis,
rookie. Thank you. Looked good. Looked really good, and he played a lot last year. So he's getting no love from us because I don't remember him playing. I don't remember seeing him enough last year.
He looked really good in week 17 or 18. Really small sample size, but I heard that he was impressing in training camp, but that only means so much. A year ago, if you recall, it was Michael Ojemudia who was really impressing in training camp, and that didn't go much of anywhere. So keeping it going here. Melvin Gordon's still out there? Yeah, you know what? I think both sides would pass on that one. Scott, final one I wanted to bring up here. We're at 50 minutes, and I said we'd go 45, but this is one that you were mentioning. What can they realistically do? What would make the biggest impact for me? And again, this is just my nature. More depth on the trenches, and I would say
special teams.
Yeah, God, everyone drink. No, I mean special
kicker. Got to get a kicker. Burning move. Yeah, wouldn't that be a burning move? Honestly, would a number 1 kicker move to the very top of this list because of Elliott Fry? That ain't the guy.
I think I might still have interior defensive line number 1, but then it would be kicker, just because again, defensive line is my favorite. But the one I was going to add was interior offensive line. You brought in Cam Fleming, but right now our lads, you can't feel good about a single one of these guys listed on the depth chart on the interior here. You have Quinn Bailey. He's played more tackle than interior and he's struggled. Luke Wattenberg, God, hide your children, to cover your eyes. That play last year, the tape last year was horrible. Poor guy. I mean, just too small, and he's also old. I think he's already 25 years old. I don't know how much ceiling there is for him. And then Kyle Fuller, listed at right guard. Your interior offensive line depth is horrible. You're one injury away from abject disaster on that line. Now, Cam Fleming can play the guard spots if need be, but I don't feel good about the second string offensive line at all, specifically on the interior. You can probably find a guy relatively cheap there after the cuts
Shermanator, Nick. Will Sherman. I mean, I think he was in American Pie.
Yeah.
So he must have filled out. He was pencil thin, skinny.
Yeah.
Back then. Just offensive line in general. Cam, swing tackle. You're okay. You feel pretty good about tackle. And honestly, I don't mind the depth there. If Luke Wattenberg is your backup center, okay, as a backup. Kyle Fuller as a backup, okay. Quinn Bailey, he's gotten some time. Backup. Cam Fleming, okay.
Yeah,
that's not bad for backups. The problem is I don't know if they're that much worse than a couple of guys ahead of them, specifically at center.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. I do not feel good about the interior depth. Not a single one of those guys I'd feel comfortable with starting a single game with where we're at from what I've seen from them. So I think adding a vet in there that at least would have a little bit more stability. Somebody who's a swing center and guard would be big for me personally. But again, Wattenberg's tape was absolutely horrible last year, and now it's a new regime and a scheme that he was not drafted to play in. I mean, I'd be shocked if he makes the team. Honest to God, that's how terrible he was last season. So I think interior offensive line is still a big one for me.
Tim says I'm a poet and didn't know it, and you're absolutely right, because I didn't know what I said that rhymed, and he helped me out here with Fry ain't the guy. No, he's not. Fry ain't the guy. He's there for now. Mm-hmm. But no, he's not your kicker. So again, for burning moves, we want to talk about what is the most likely thing to happen. I think the most likely thing to happen is you bring in a number one kicker. That's number one on the list for $2.5 million, Nick.
Yep. I put it number two behind interior defensive line, but
that's for what I want to happen.
Yeah.
And that's for but as far as like predicting, let's put down money on what's going to happen. What move are the Broncos going to make? 100%. They're going to bring in more place kicking.
Yeah. And I see there's some Matt Ariza talking here, who apparently his case was waived as far as his involvement for the that assault. But Broncos paid pretty good money to bring in Riley Dixon, and apparently he's been booming in all of the training camp and whatnot. So I'm not too worried about the punter spot. I think Riley Dixon is going to be a big get for the Broncos, and one that was picked by your Westhoff and all your special teams guys. So I'm not too worried about the punter spot. I think you feel pretty good to have Riley Dixon here.
Yeah. Ariza should get a chance somewhere. I think he probably will. You'll hear him get a tryout, and hopefully he'll get a chance in there. And Dylan asks, got his own Auburn shirt, or is it close as you get to repping Auburn? It works well for me because of the colors. It matches the Denver Broncos. It matches Auburn, but it's actually CFC, Chelsea Football Club. So I asked for this one when I saw it. I actually asked for a jacket too, I think, when I saw it in these colors. So this is actually for fandom. This is about the only stuff I wear for fandom is Chelsea Football Club.
I only own about 20 Hawkeye shirts that you probably see me wear on these shows constantly.
I worked in recruiting for 15 years. I couldn't be seen publicly in anything Auburn. So it kind of, and the Auburn fans were so awful to me about some specific things. I'm like, to hell with y'all. So no, I don't mean all of y'all, but some of them were just bad. And I saw that covering it. It's like usually the second team in an area, their fans were always so hostile. Oh, the only reason he's not ranked higher is because I'm like,
little man syndrome. Yeah.
Just stop.
Yep.
I gotta say, I don't care. I root for me. I don't root for Alabama. I don't root for Auburn. If I say Julio Jones is the number one wide receiver in the country, by God, I want him to be the number one wide receiver in the country. I don't care where he goes.
Yep. Yeah, without a doubt. I got to say, being an Iowa fan, recruiting has never been much of a big follow because they don't kill it in the recruiting trails. I did see that Iowa in the last 20 years has had the most 3-star rated players drafted in the first round. So Iowa's very much a recruiting program. They find like these athletic quarterbacks from these tiny high schools somewhere and like, you know what? You're going to be a damn good linebacker. Chad Greenway, he was an option
teams
quarterback.
Ahead of them don't sign enough 3 stars to qualify.
That's probably a big part of it too. But they do a good job developing and finding some guys out there. But so
No,
head
they
tip to them.
absolutely do. And part of that is, you do these recruiting rankings. Last story, and then we'll move on from this. Is you guys say we can't beat this team because of the. No, I don't say that, because development. Once they show up, they're all no stars. And I've always said a year of experience is worth a half a star in recruiting. And sorry for the recruiting talk, but you get BYU, and you're getting a top 300 player instead of a top 100 player. They go off to Mormon mission. They come back at 21 years old. They redshirt, and these guys are in the trenches as first-year guys at 23 years old. Okay, you're going against grown men in the trenches. Meanwhile, you get a 5-star guy who you'll be lucky to get 3 years. Tyron Smith was a perfect example for me. He was 255 pounds, 6'6", 255, a technician, outstanding prospect. But he was 255. Put 5 stars next to his name, number 1 offensive tackle. He didn't really play as a freshman, was okay as a sophomore, was all Pac-12 as a junior, and then he was gone.
Yep.
Then he was gone. So, and he ended up being the number 1 offensive lineman taken off the board by the Dallas Cowboys.
In that
Putting 5 stars draft. Number 1 next to his name was the right evaluation. It was bang on, 100%. Couldn't get it any more right. But USC didn't get the benefit of having the number 1 offensive lineman, but for maybe a few games at the end of his junior year. Meanwhile, the guys that Iowa are bringing in are redshirting and staying 5 years, and they're 4th and 5th year seniors, and they're going to go against 18-year-old 5-star kids and beating their butts in the trenches. That's how these teams that don't recruit as high can beat the other teams, because you get, again, it's a grown man's game inside, and that's where it makes the most difference. The skill players, they're born.
Yeah.
An 18-year-old skill player is going to be as good at 18 that he could be at 20. That doesn't really matter.
Also, some of those unbelievable defensive linemen. I mean, they do get bigger and stronger over time. But
to me, those are skill players. Those are big skill players. Those are athletes. Those guys are just born.
Yep.
You build lines.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, guys, that's going to have to wrap on up for us. Appreciate everybody coming in here. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at BFB_pod, as well as at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle, and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says here underneath, please subscribe, like, and share. Shout out to everybody who came in today and supported us with super chats. God bless you guys. I know that it's the dead season, and we really stretched our legs today with a lot of the topics. But shout out to our guy Robbie Red out there in Vashon Island. Of course, we had Gary Leeds Palmer. Appreciate you, Gary. And Troy Bauer coming in over on YouTube. And then, of course, Facebook, Michael Ronquillo. Thank you so much. Did I miss anybody there, Scott, on any of these supers?
I didn't write them down while I was doing this. I don't think so. And it was Troy, Robbie Red, who I believe you did say Robbie Red. See, there I'm rhyming again. Gary Palmer came in, Troy, and I thought there was one more that came in, but I don't remember. So either way, we'll make sure to give you a shout out after the show. So follow us on Twitter on that to get a little love, to get a little shout out for everybody that helps us out like that, including all y'all who are hitting the like and the subscribes. That helps a lot too. Yeah,
do that on the way out. We appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend. Hopefully you're not one of those people shooting off fireworks, 6 days after the 4th at 3 a.m. But just be safe, make smart decisions, and continue to choose kindness and compassion, as I like to say. And as always, go Broncos.